The heavy scent of hickory smoke and lighter fluid clung to the humid suburban air. Silver and gold balloons, marking my father's birthday, bobbed listlessly above the manicured lawn, but all I wanted was for the day to end. My half-sister Jessica was holding court on the flagstone patio, her laughter a little too loud, a little too rehearsed. She was parading her new manager around to our relatives, basking in the glow of their attention as she always did. I tried to make myself smaller, hovering by the beverage cooler, but she caught my eye. A self-satisfied smirk bloomed on her face as she waved her manager over. "Daniel, come here. You have to meet my sister Claire." She paused for dramatic effect, then let out a sharp laugh. "She's our resident disappointment." The polite, pained chuckles from my aunts and uncles felt like 1,000 tiny needles. I fixed my gaze on my worn-out sneakers, willing myself to disappear, just waiting for the moment to pass. But her manager, Daniel Reed, didn't laugh. His eyes flickered from Jessica's triumphant face to mine, his expression unreadable. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk touched his lips. "How interesting," he said, his voice slicing through the party chatter with surgical precision. "Because, Jessica, you're terminated." The sizzle of the grill suddenly seemed deafening. The background music cut out. Every single person in that backyard, my father included, finally turned to look at me. But it was far, far too late. Before we get into the thick of it, do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment to let me know where in the world you're watching from. That silence in the backyard was the most profound sound I had ever experienced. It was the sound of my entire existence, the soundtrack to a life spent being looked through. Jessica's face was a mask of chalky disbelief, and my father, Robert, just stared at me as if I were a complete stranger. This wasn't a new feeling. Being forgotten was the wallpaper of my childhood. My actual mother, Eleanor, passed away when I was 17. It was ovarian cancer, and it was brutally quick. For 6 months, it was just me and my dad rattling around in that house, orbiting each other like grieving planets. I did the cooking, the cleaning. I managed the household finances from his checkbook. I convinced myself that this was how we would rebuild, that we were a unit. I was a fool. 6 months to the day after my mother was laid to rest, Robert married Helen. I hadn't even known he was seeing anyone. I walked in the door after my shift at the local library to find him zipping up a suitcase. "We're off on our honeymoon, Claire," he announced, not meeting my eyes. Helen and I tied the knot this afternoon. Helen was Jessica's mother. A week later, she moved in, bringing with her Jessica, who was my age, and their toddler, Maya. My home, the house I grew up in, the house my mother had filled with warmth and the scent of baking bread, was suddenly alien territory. Helen brought in sleek modern furniture that didn't fit. She had the walls, which my mother had painted a warm, buttery yellow, covered in a sterile, joyless beige. The photos of my mother vanished from the mantelpiece, replaced by professionally shot portraits of this new, flawless family. Jessica was my polar opposite. She was polished and poised. Her hair was never out of place, her clothes were always brand new. She was effervescent and charming, and she knew exactly how to play my father. I was the quiet, somber girl from the first marriage. I was the before picture. This new family unit clicked together seamlessly, and I was the piece that was left on the floor. The favoritism wasn't just obvious, it was a daily ritual. When Jessica turned 16, a brand new convertible sat in the driveway, adorned with a ridiculously large red bow. My father tossed her the keys, beaming, "Nothing but the best for my star." A year before, when I turned 16, I had asked for driving lessons. My father had rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture of mild inconvenience. Claire. The budget's just too tight at the moment. Your mom's medical bills, you know. You get it. I got it. I took the city bus. Jessica wanted to take up horseback riding. The lessons were booked the next day. I needed new prescription glasses. I had to wait 3 months until the budget could recover. Jessica was enrolled in a prestigious private school, a status symbol Robert was all too happy to parade. I attended the local public high school, and when I got home from school, a list of chores was always waiting. I was expected to prepare dinner for the new family. I was expected to watch Maya. "You're just so wonderful with her," Helen would coo, her eyes never leaving the page of her glossy magazine. "It's good for you to learn some responsibility." I was already responsible. At 17, I was the only other functioning adult in that house. But the worst part wasn't the chores. It wasn't the hand-me-down clothes from Jessica, always delivered with a condescending look of pity. The worst part was the absolute indifference. They spoke around me, made plans through me. I was a piece of furniture, a tool to be used. "Claire, tell your father dinner's ready," Helen would shout from the top of the stairs, even if my father was sitting on the sofa just 10 feet away. I eventually stopped speaking unless spoken to. I stopped asking for anything. It was easier to be a ghost. Ghosts don't get their feelings hurt. I channeled all my energy into a single goal: escape. I buried myself in books. I worked every spare hour at a diner, stashing my tips in an old shoebox under my bed. I filled out scholarship applications in secret. When the acceptance letter arrived offering a full academic scholarship to the state university, I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in years. I showed it to my father, my hands trembling with a mixture of pride and anxiety. I thought he'd be proud. He offered a thin, tired smile. "That's great, Claire, a scholarship." "Good for you," he said, folding the letter and handing it back. "You know, the budget is really tight. This will be a big help." I was baffled. "It's a full ride, Dad. It covers everything." Right, he said, his attention already drifting back to the television. "But you'll be commuting, of course. We can't afford a dorm room." I stared at him, my heart sinking. The university was an hour and a half away. Commuting? But Jessica is different, he said, his voice suddenly firm as if waking from a trance. Her private school connections, the networking. She needs the campus experience. It's vital for her future. My future, apparently, was a 3-hour round trip on a bus every day. The following year, Jessica was accepted into the same university. I still don't know how. Her grades were mediocre at best. But Robert and Helen threw her a lavish going-away party. They bought her an entire dorm room suite from a high-end catalog, a new laptop, a new set of designer luggage, a new car, because the convertible was apparently getting old. I watched the whole spectacle from the kitchen, refilling bowls of dip. My father raised a champagne flute for a toast. "To my daughter Jessica," he boomed. "Off to conquer the world. We are so, so proud." I commuted for 2 years. I worked late shifts at the diner. I did my homework in the university library until it closed. I never saw my father or the family. I would leave a portion of my paycheck on the kitchen counter for rent, a rule Helen had instituted. By the time I was 20, I was gone. I found a tiny room for rent near campus and picked up a second job. I subsisted on instant noodles and worked until my eyes burned. I didn't pack much. I just left. I took my shoebox of tips, my textbooks, and the single photo I owned of my real mother. No one called. For 2 entire weeks, no one from my family even realized I was gone. When my father finally did phone, it wasn't out of concern. "Claire, Helen's wondering where you've been," he said, his voice flat. "Maya needs to be picked up from daycare." "I don't live there anymore, Dad," I said. There was a long, heavy pause. "Oh," he finally replied. "Well, don't come crawling back to us for help if you're going to have that attitude." He hung up. I was invisible, and in that moment of stark clarity, I knew I was completely, utterly on my own. After the barbecue disaster, I just drove. I didn't say a single goodbye. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely fit the key into the ignition. "You're terminated." Daniel Reed's voice echoed in the ringing silence of my car. I drove aimlessly, but my car seemed to have a mind of its own. I ended up in front of the old house in Westbury, the one my mother had adored, the one I had grown up in before it became a mausoleum of beige. Robert and Helen had upgraded years ago to a larger, gaudier house in Oak Brook, the one with the pool and the barbecue pit. They kept this old house for storage, or perhaps because my father could never be bothered to finish clearing out my mother's life. I still had a key. I had been avoiding this for years. After I left at 20, I had never once returned. But after today, after being branded a disappointment in front of everyone, I had to. I felt a sudden, fierce compulsion to gather the last remnants of my mother and get out of this city, away from this family, for good. The house was frigid. A thick layer of dust coated every surface. It smelled of decaying paper and forgotten memories. I went straight to the kitchen. This had been her domain. She used to bake, and the whole house would be filled with warmth. Now it was just an empty shell. Helen had taken the valuable china, but she'd left my mother's cookbooks. They were piled in a corner, draped in a dusty bedsheet. I pulled it off, coughing, and saw the familiar titles: Mastering the Art of French Cooking, The Joy of Cooking. I ran a finger across their spines, remembering how she would read them like novels. I picked up her absolute favorite, a stained and warped copy of a local community cookbook. Its binding was broken. As I lifted it, something small and heavy slipped out from between the pages. It was a small velvet pouch, dark navy blue, the kind used for fine jewelry. It had a drawstring and it felt substantial. My heart began to beat a little faster. I'd never seen it before. I pulled the strings open. Inside wasn't a piece of jewelry. It was a simple black USB flash drive. I frowned. My mother passed away before these kinds of drives were ubiquitous. She had been ill for a long time and wasn't using computers at the end. This must have belonged to my father. Maybe he'd stashed it here. I looked around the desolate kitchen. My work laptop bag was in my car from a recent business trip. I ran out, retrieved it, and brought it inside. I sat on the dusty linoleum floor, fired up my laptop, and inserted the drive. A single folder appeared on the screen labeled Claire. My breath hitched. I clicked it open. The folder was a trove of files, JPEGs, PDFs, and design documents. I opened the first one. It was a logo, a crisp, elegant design in green and gold for a local floral shop. I just stared. I remembered drawing this. This was from my college portfolio, a project from my Intro to Graphic Design course. I clicked the next file. A tagline, "Your vision in full bloom." I wrote that. I remembered my professor praising its simplicity. I clicked again and again. A knot of ice formed in my stomach. Campaign mock-ups, advertisement layouts, complete visual identity presentations. It was all my work, my best work. The projects from college that I had poured my heart and soul into. The portfolio I'd used to try and land my first freelance gigs. But it was all repackaged. The files were cleaned up. The taglines were attached to professional broadcast storyboards. The logos were mocked up on news segments from Metro 7 News. Metro 7. That's where Jessica worked. No. I whispered it to the empty, silent room. No, she couldn't have. I kept scrolling. It wasn't just my old college assignments, it was newer work. Concepts I had pitched to clients years ago, ideas that had been rejected or shelved. Except they weren't. They were right here. Custom fonts I'd developed, color palettes I'd created, every single file, every single concept, stolen. I felt physically ill. I was looking at 5 years of systematic plagiarism. Jessica had built her celebrated career on the back of my talent. She'd had access. When I lived there, my computer was my whole world. She must have snooped through my things, copied my files, and she never stopped. She wasn't just recycling my old work. She was somehow still taking my new work. How was that possible? I scrolled to the very last file in the folder. It wasn't a design, it was a client list. It appeared to be an internal document from Metro 7. I saw names I recognized, local Chicago businesses, and then I saw the last name on that list. My vision swam. I had to read it again to believe it. Client, Northlight Digital. I stopped breathing. Northlight Digital, that was my agency. That was my company. The company I had built from the ground up. The company my family knew nothing about. Jessica hadn't just stolen my work. She had been stealing from me, repackaging my concepts and selling them back to my own company through a subsidiary account at the news station. The resident disappointment. She wasn't just a plagiarist. She was plagiarizing her own CEO. The velvet pouch fell from my numb fingers. The truth was so bitter, so profoundly awful, it tasted like acid in my throat. I was the one who signed her paychecks, and she had just called me a disappointment. The irony was so sharp it was almost comical. I sat there on the dusty floor, a 33-year-old woman with a $15 million company, and I finally understood. Jessica hadn't just humiliated me. She had handed me the very weapon I needed to dismantle her entire life. When my mother Eleanor died, she left me nothing tangible. No money, no property. The house was in my father's name alone. I didn't inherit a safety net. I learned to weave my own. My only real inheritance was the memory of her voice telling me, "Don't ever let them make you feel small, Claire. Your mind is your greatest asset. Use it." And I did. While I was commuting 3 hours a day to college, I was devouring business books on the bus. While I was serving tables at the diner, I was building small websites for local shops on my breaks. While Jessica was going to sorority parties, I was teaching myself how to code. When I left home at 20, I didn't just run away. I executed a plan. I moved into a tiny, run-down apartment in a sketchy part of the city. I lived on rice and beans. I juggled 3 jobs, and every single spare dollar, every spare moment was funneled into building my business. I started with a single rented desk in a co-working space. I called my company Northlight Digital. Northlight was the name of the street my mother loved, where she always dreamed of opening a small bookstore. It was quiet, it was strong, it was everything I aspired to be. My first client was a local bakery. They paid me $200 for a logo. I treated that $200 like it was $2 million. I worked 80-hour weeks. I worked through holidays and weekends. I was completely and utterly obsessed because Northlight wasn't just a company. It was my lifeboat. It was the one corner of my life my family couldn't touch, couldn't criticize, couldn't belittle. So I kept it a secret. In the beginning, it was easy. They never called, never asked about my life. On the rare holiday I forced myself to attend, they'd glance at my simple clothes and my decade-old car. "Still doing that little computer thing?" Helen would ask, her voice dripping with condescending pity. "Yes," I'd say. "It's going fine. Jessica just got another promotion at the station. They're talking about making her a lead producer. We're just so proud." I would just nod. That's great. It was easier to let them believe I was struggling. It was safer. If they thought I was a failure, they'd leave me alone. They wouldn't come asking for money. They wouldn't try to meddle. My success was mine and mine alone. And it grew. That $200 job became a $2,000 one. That led to a $50,000 retainer. I hired my first employee, then my 10th. I was smart, I was relentless, and to my family, I was invisible. I opened an office in Austin, then another in Seattle. My little computer thing was now a $15 million creative agency with a roster of national clients. I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the one who owned the building. I knew Jessica worked at Metro 7 in Chicago. I knew she was a creative producer. And yes, Northlight Digital had a contract with Metro 7. It was one of our smaller media buy accounts, handled through a subsidiary firm I owned for just such purposes. It was a standard, automated contract. I never connected the dots. Why would I? I never imagined she could be that foolish or that cruel. I assumed she was just being Jessica, coasting by on her looks and my father's connections. But now, sitting on that floor, I saw the unvarnished truth. She wasn't just coasting. She was a parasite. She had been feeding on my old portfolio, my discarded ideas for years. She saw my work, recognized my talent, and instead of feeling a shred of admiration, she simply took it. She signed her name to it and used it to climb the ladder, to get promotions and accolades. She used my mind to build her life, and the entire time, she and my family were laughing at me, calling me the failure, the quiet one, the sad girl who never amounted to anything. The irony didn't just burn, it was a wildfire. She had no clue who she was really working for. She had no clue who I had become. She was about to find out. My anger wasn't hot and messy. It was cold, crystalline, and focused. This was no longer a family drama. This was a corporate crime. This was felony intellectual property theft. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel, and I formulated a plan. I drove back to my real home, a sleek, minimalist downtown penthouse my family had never seen. I brewed a strong pot of coffee, opened my laptop, and made a single phone call. Chloe Chen. Her voice was sharp and alert, even at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. "Hey Chen, I need your brain," I said. Chloe and I had been college roommates, bonding during that 2-year haze of exhaustion and bus rides. She was the only person who had ever truly seen me. She was a digital forensics wizard, a genius who read code the way others read poetry. When I started Northlight, she was the first person I hired. Now she ran my entire IT and security division from our Seattle office. "What's wrong, Claire?" she asked immediately. She could always tell from the tone of my voice. "Is it your family?" "It's always my family," I replied. "But this time, it's business." I sent her the contents of the USB drive. I sent her the client list from Metro 7. "I need to know everything," I told her. "I need a definitive timeline. I need to know how she did it, how long it's been going on, and I need the evidence to be absolutely irrefutable." "Give me 2 hours," she said. Chloe didn't need 2 hours. She needed 90 minutes. My phone rang, and I put it on speaker. "Okay," she said, the sound of her fingers flying across a keyboard in the background. "This is bad, Claire. This is systematic. Walk me through it," I said, opening a new document. "First, the USB drive. That's your old college portfolio, no question. The file properties are all time-stamped between 2008 and 2011. Your digital signature is embedded in the metadata. That's your undeniable baseline. Go on." "Now, Jessica, I accessed the Metro 7 servers. Don't worry, I used a secure back-end trace. They'll never know I was there." I pulled her complete work history. Chloe paused, and I heard her take a deep breath. "Claire, it's all of it." her entire career. It's you. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. Show me. My screen lit up with a shared feed from Chloe's computer. She displayed a side-by-side comparison. On the left, my original file, time-stamped 2010, a full campaign proposal for a local animal shelter. On the right, Jessica's award-winning campaign for a station-sponsored pet adoption drive that aired in 2019. It was identical. The same fonts, the same taglines, the same emotional narrative arc. She had merely swapped the logos. She built a file scraper, Chloe explained, her voice tight with suppressed rage. It looks like she gained access to your personal cloud storage years ago, probably when you were still living at home. She's been systematically pulling your rejected pitch decks, your idea boards, anything you filed away. She's been stealing and repurposing everything. How much? I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. I've identified 48 distinct campaigns over the last 5 years. All of them are your intellectual property. All of them have her name attached. All of them have digital timestamps proving she accessed your original files mere days before she pitched them as her own at the station. Chloe was quiet for a moment. Claire, the value of the stolen IP is in the millions. The metadata trail, it's perfect. It's got broadcast air dates, internal company emails, her login credentials from the station's network. It's a digital confession. I stared at the screen. 48 times. She had betrayed me 48 times. All those family dinners where I sat in silence, letting them mock my little computer job, while she smiled and accepted their praise for my work. Claire, Chloe's voice was softer now. You have more than enough here to send her to prison. Breach of contract, felony IP theft, wire fraud. You want to bury her? I can have a legal team on this by morning. I considered it. I thought about the police, about courts, about my father's face, about Helen's condescending voice. It wasn't enough. Prison was too simple. Jail would make her a martyr. It would cast me as the villain. My family would rally around her. Poor Jessica, they'd say. Claire was always so jealous. No, I don't want to bury her, I said. Then what do you want? I thought about the backyard. I thought about the mocking laughter. I thought about the word disappointment. I want her to see who she humiliated, I said. I want them all to see. I want to do it in person. Chloe was silent for a beat. Then she said, okay, then we don't need a lawyer. We need a presentation. Chloe finished her analysis, and I just stared at the wall of my apartment. The digital proof was all there, organized and stacked neatly on my secure server, a fortress of damning evidence. My anger had burned down to a cold, hard diamond. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was a CEO, and I had identified a massive security breach. So the presentation, Chloe said, her voice shifting back to its usual practical tone. What's the venue? My father's house, I said, and the audience is the entire family. Chloe hesitated. Claire, that's intense. Are you sure you don't want to just send a cease and desist? Let the lawyers handle it. It's cleaner. It's not clean, I said, walking to my floor-to-ceiling window and looking down at the glittering Chicago skyline. My skyline. This was never clean. She didn't just steal my work, Chloe. She stole my life. She let me be the family joke while she built her career on my back. She did it at family dinners. She did it at holidays. She humiliated me in that house. I'm going to end it in that house. Okay? Chloe said, her voice firm with understanding. Okay, boss. Then we don't build a legal deck. We build a story. For the next day, we worked. Chloe was my remote right hand. We didn't just assemble the files. We made them visual, simple, and undeniable. We designed it for an audience that didn't understand code or metadata, but understood loyalty and shame. We put my original hand-drawn college sketches side by side with Jessica's award-winning broadcast graphics. We placed my time-stamped, rejected client pitch from 2017 next to her brilliant concept from 2019. We highlighted the identical taglines in bold red. We showed the file paths with my name as the creator and her name as the modifier. We even embedded the video clip from the barbecue, the one where she called me a disappointment, right next to the $1.2 million in media buys her original campaigns had generated for the station. Campaigns that were, in fact, my work. Finally, we pulled the financials. We traced the contract from my subsidiary to Metro 7, and we found the payment logs for Jessica's producer fee, which was ultimately paid for by me. "It's done," Chloe said. "It's a murder weapon, Claire." "Good," I replied. "Put it on a secure drive. I'll load it onto my laptop." I closed my computer. I was ready. I was calm. I was a woman walking into a final exam she had been studying for her entire life. I knew every single answer. And then, as if summoned by fate, my phone lit up. A text from Jessica. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't pound. I just felt a quiet click, like the final piece of a complex machine locking into place. The text read, "Family BBQ this weekend. Dad's rebirthday. You should come. Bring dessert or something." I stared at the message. The sheer arrogance, the casual, unthinking cruelty of it. Bring dessert. She had just been fired, publicly and spectacularly, and she was still trying to put me in my box. She was still trying to be the star. She must have spun some story to my father, convincing him I had somehow sabotaged her, that I was jealous. She was doubling down. This wasn't just another barbecue. This was her attempt to reassert her dominance, to show the family that she was still the favorite and I was still the outsider. The text was a challenge, and it was a perfect golden opportunity. I waited an hour just to let it sit. Then I typed back a simple reply. "I'll be there. I'll bring something special." The next 2 days passed in a strange, calm void. I went to work at my downtown office. I took calls with my teams in Austin and Seattle. I approved budgets. I moved a multi-million-dollar acquisition deal forward. I was Claire Sterling, CEO. At night, I would go home and review the presentation, clicking through the slides one by one, memorizing the devastating flow. I didn't rehearse what I would say. I didn't need to. The truth was the only script I needed. That Sunday morning, my phone rang. It was Helen, my stepmother. "Claire, are you coming?" Her voice was tight with stress. "I said I was," I replied evenly. "Well, what are you bringing? I need to know for the table. Are you bringing that weird vegan pie you like? Because no one else eats it." "I'm not bringing pie," I said. "Well, what then?" "I need to plan. Jessica is here and she's had a very difficult week, you know. That manager of hers. It's all a big misunderstanding. Robert is handling it." "Robert is handling it." "I'm sure he is," I said. I had my laptop bag in my hand. Inside was a small, high-powered projector Chloe had couriered over, just in case. "I'm bringing my laptop," I said. "Your laptop?" Helen sounded baffled, then angry. "What on earth for? Are you going to do work at your father's party?" "My God, Claire, this is why you're a disappointment. You have no social graces." She hung up. I stood in my hallway, a slow smile spreading across my face. She had just given me my opening line. "This is why you're a disappointment." I put on my shoes. I chose my outfit with care, not a power suit, not a fancy dress. I wore exactly what I always wore to these family gatherings: old faded jeans, a simple gray t-shirt and sneakers. I pulled my hair back into a messy bun. I was invisible, Claire. I was the forgotten daughter. I was the disappointment. That's exactly who I wanted them to see. One last time. I drove to the house in Oak Brook. I parked down the street, not in the circular driveway. I walked up the stone path and the familiar smell of barbecue and chlorine hit me, mingled with the sound of forced laughter. I had my laptop bag slung over one shoulder. It felt heavy. It felt like armor. I walked around the side gate and into the backyard. Showtime. The scene was an almost surreal carbon copy of the week before. Silver and gold balloons, the same relatives occupying the same lawn chairs, the same aggressive sizzle from the grill. It was a play stuck in a horrifying loop. My father, Robert, was manning the grill, tongs in hand. He was laughing a little too loudly, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. He saw me, and his smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he boomed, "Claire, you made it! Grab a drink, grab a plate." He didn't want me there. He was afraid of me. Good. Helen scurried over, her face a mask of strained pleasantries. "Claire, dear, you came." She glanced disdainfully at my laptop bag. "You really brought that thing? Put it on the table inside. No one wants to look at that." "I'll keep it with me," I said, my voice quiet but firm. I didn't move. Then I saw her, Jessica. She was lounging on a chaise by the pool, oversized sunglasses on, clutching a glass of white wine. She looked perfect. Her hair was professionally blown out. She was wearing a new, expensive-looking sundress. She was the very picture of a wronged victim, soaking up the family's sympathy. Maya, my younger half-sister, was perched on the edge of a nearby chair, looking deeply uncomfortable. And then I saw him. Daniel Reed, her former manager, my employee. He was standing near the patio doors, nursing a beer, looking completely out of place in his work trousers and a dress shirt, though his tie was gone. Jessica had actually managed to get him to come. She was that arrogant. She truly believed she could charm her way out of being fired. She believed my father's influence meant something. Daniel caught my eye and gave me a single, almost imperceptible nod. He was here because I had asked him to be. I'd called him the day before. "I'm handling it in person," I'd told him. "I need you there as a witness." He had simply said, "I'll be there." Jessica saw me looking and dramatically removed her sunglasses. She stood up and sauntered over, her smile wide and bright and laced with poison. "Claire, I'm so glad you could make it. I was afraid you'd be too embarrassed to show your face. After, you know." All conversation around us ceased. Everyone was listening. "After what, Jessica?" I asked calmly. "After you got me in trouble." She laughed, playing to the crowd of relatives. "Can you believe it? My own sister. She must have said something awful to my manager. She's always been so jealous. But don't worry." She walked over and looped her arm through Daniel's. "I've got him here. We're going to clear this whole mess up. My father is handling it." My father beamed from the grill. "That's right. Our girl's a star. No one keeps a Vance down." He raised his spatula in a mock toast. "Everyone, a toast to my daughter Jessica, the star of the family." "Hear, hear," my uncle shouted. This was it. This was the moment. "Dad," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the sycophantic applause. He turned, annoyed. "What is it, Claire? Don't interrupt." "I brought something," I said. "You asked me to bring something special." "I did. It's a family video, a celebration, for your birthday." Helen rolled her eyes. "A video? Claire, no one wants to—" "I want to see it," Maya piped up from her chair by the pool. She was the only one who looked at me with anything other than pity or disdain. "Let her show it." My father sighed, exasperated. "Fine, fine. We have that big TV on the patio. Hook up your laptop, just make it quick. It was almost too easy. I walked over to the large 70-inch screen mounted on the exterior wall. I unzipped my bag. I didn't take out the projector. I wouldn't need it. I just took out my laptop and an HDMI cable. I plugged it in. The screen flickered to life, mirroring my clean black desktop. Nothing on it. "Okay, it's ready," I said. The family gathered around, some pulling their chairs closer, others standing with plates of food. They thought they were about to endure a sappy slideshow of old family photos. Jessica stood next to Daniel, her arm still linked with his, sipping her wine. Smug. I stood by my laptop. "This is a project I've been working on for a very long time," I said. I clicked the first slide. It was a logo, a beautiful, hand-drawn design for a local bakery. I called it The Sweet Life, I said clearly. I drew this in 2009. It was my final project for my sophomore design class. I clicked. The screen split. On the right, a TV commercial for a local charity bake sale. The logo in the corner was identical. "Jessica designed this for the Metro 7 Sweet Charity campaign," I said, my voice even. "It won her a local media award." I heard a glass clink against a plate. "What is this?" Jessica said, her voice sharp. "My presentation," I replied. I clicked again. A new slide. My original tagline, "Your home, your vision." Time stamped 2010. Next to it, Jessica's broadcast promo for a real estate show. The exact same tagline. Click, my custom font design. Her station's on-air graphics. Click, my unique color palette. Her new campaign branding. Click, my entire nonprofit campaign pitch deck. Her award-winning charity drive. With every click, the air in the backyard grew colder. The sizzling of the grill was the only sound left. My father's face was ashen. Helen was staring, her mouth agape. "Robert, what is this?" "It's a mistake," Jessica hissed. "She's lying. She stole those from me." "Did I?" I asked softly. I clicked to the next slide. It was a screen recording. It showed my secure cloud storage. It showed a login from an unauthorized IP address, Jessica's IP address from her home network. It showed her downloading my files, timestamped the day before she pitched the Sweet Charity campaign to her superiors. Someone gasped. "That's not real," Jessica shrieked. "You faked that. Tell them, Daniel. Tell them this is insane." She tugged frantically on his arm. Daniel just looked at her, his face like granite. He slowly, deliberately pulled his arm away from her grasp. He stepped forward. "It's real," he said. He pointed at the screen. "That right there, that's my final piece of proof. I was waiting for it." He turned to Jessica. "These designs don't just look like designs from Northlight Digital. They are designs from Northlight Digital." My father stepped forward. "Now wait just a minute, Mr. Reed. Northlight is just a vendor. Jessica is the talent. Claire, you turn this off right now. You're ruining your father's party." "Shut up, Robert," Daniel said, his voice quiet but commanding. My father froze. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Daniel turned to address the whole family, his voice now loud, clear, and professional. "For the last 5 years, Jessica Vance has been systematically stealing intellectual property. She has been committing felony fraud against her employer, Metro 7 News, and against our primary creative vendor, Northlight Digital." He paused, looked at me, then looked back at the stunned crowd. "And Claire, your resident disappointment, owns Northlight Digital." The yard didn't just go silent. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of it. Robert dropped the grilling tongs. They clattered loudly on the stone patio. Helen's plastic smile didn't just fall, it shattered. Maya was standing by the pool, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a dawning understanding. Jessica? Her face was a canvas of pure horror. The color drained away completely. The smugness, the pride, the casual arrogance, it all just evaporated. She stared at me, and for the very first time in our lives, I felt like she was actually seeing me. Her voice was a tiny cracked whisper. You're my boss?" I looked at her, my expression unreadable. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I just felt done. "Always was," I said. The silence that followed those two words was absolute, a perfect vacuum. I could hear a bee buzzing by the rose bushes near the fence. I could hear a neighbor's lawnmower start up 2 blocks away. Jessica's wine glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the patio and shattered, splashing Chardonnay across the stone. She didn't even flinch. She just stared at me. "No," she whispered. "No, you're lying. Dad, she's lying." My father turned to me, his face a confused, contorted mess of anger and fear. "Claire, is this true? This Northlight, this is yours? The $15 million company?" He knew. He had looked it up. He had been handling it. He knew the size of the company he was trying to intimidate. And now he knew it was mine. "Yes," I said. Daniel stepped forward, all business. He was no longer a party guest. He was an executive. My executive. He opened the briefcase he had set by the door and pulled out 3 thick white folders. "Robert, Helen, this is for you," he said, handing the first folder to my father. He turned to Jessica. She was completely frozen. He didn't hand her the folder. He dropped it at her feet, right where the wine had pooled. "And this one," Daniel said, "is a courtesy copy for your parents, since you are clearly incapable of managing your own affairs." "What is this?" Robert stammered, his hands shaking as he fumbled with the folder. "That," Daniel said, his voice like ice, "is a detailed summary of the evidence you just saw. It includes copies of the server logs, the IP traces, and the broadcast records. It also includes a formal termination letter for Jessica Vance, effective immediately, for cause. The cause, in this case, being felony IP theft, gross misconduct, and breach of contract." "Breach of contract?" Helen whispered, her eyes frantically scanning the pages. She didn't have a contract. She had an employment agreement," Daniel corrected. "And Northlight Digital had a vendor agreement with Metro 7. Jessica's theft put Metro 7 in material breach of our contract. This is a multi-million-dollar legal catastrophe." Jessica finally snapped back to life. She looked at my father, her eyes wild with terror. Daddy, fix it. Tell him you'll handle it." She was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of pure panic. "You can't do this," she shrieked at me. "It's a party. You're doing this at Dad's party. You bitch. You've always been jealous of me. You always wanted what I had." "I never wanted what you had, Jessica," I said. My voice, as quiet as hers, was loud. "But you stole what was mine. It was just ideas. You weren't using them," she sobbed. "They were just on your computer. It's not stealing. Daddy, tell her." My father looked down at the evidence in his hand. He looked at the termination letter. He looked at the number at the bottom of the page, the restitution amount Daniel was demanding. He looked at Jessica, and for the very first time in her life, her father looked at her with absolutely nothing. No pride, no love, just cold, hard blankness. He was a businessman staring at a bad investment. He didn't say a single word. No one defended her. My aunts, my uncles, they were all just staring, horrified. They were embarrassed. They were implicated. Their laughter from the week before, their pitying looks, their quiet complicity in the Claire is a disappointment narrative, it was all hanging in the air like poison. They didn't defend her. They just backed away. One by one, They picked up their plates and drinks and shuffled quietly into the house, avoiding eye contact. The party was over. Finally, it was just us. Me, Daniel, my father, Helen, and a hysterically sobbing Jessica. Maya was still there by the pool, watching, a silent observer. "What now, Claire?" my father asked, his voice dead. "Now nothing," I said. "This part is done. Are you going to sue us?" Helen whispered. "That paper, it says millions." "That's up to Daniel," I said. "He's the COO of the parent company. It's his job to protect our assets." All of them looked at Daniel, the man Jessica had tried to charm, the man my father had tried to handle. He was the one with all the power, and he worked for me. Daniel simply adjusted his tie. "My legal team will be in touch with you, Robert." I turned back to the TV. My presentation was still on the screen, the damning side-by-side proof. I pressed a key, and the screen went black. I unhooked the HDMI cable and coiled it neatly. I closed my laptop. The soft click of the lid felt final. I zipped it into its bag. "Claire, wait," my father said, reaching out a hand. Don't go. We can fix this. It's a family matter." I looked at his hand, the hand that held the tongs, the hand that had signed Jessica's tuition checks but never mine, the hand that was, right now, holding a letter demanding restitution for his favored daughter's crimes. "No, Dad," I said. "It's a business matter, and you're not in my business." I slung the bag over my shoulder. "Claire, please," Jessica cried out, lunging at me and grabbing my arm. "Please don't. You can't. You'll ruin me. I'll be blacklisted. I'll have nothing." I looked down at her hand on my arm, at her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. I didn't pull away. I just waited. "You did this to yourself, Jessica," I said. "You and your plagiarism. You and your arrogance. You called me a disappointment." I looked her directly in the eye. "You were fired by a disappointment. What does that make you?" I pulled my arm free. I turned and walked away. I walked past the grill, the smell of charred meat still hanging in the air. I walked past the shattered wine glass. I didn't look back. I heard Jessica let out a terrible animalistic wail. I heard Helen start to sob. I heard my father just standing there, silent. I walked out the side gate, closed it gently behind me, and got into my car. As I drove away, I saw Maya standing at the end of the driveway watching me go. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. The illusion was shattered. The show was over. The next morning, I was in my office, my real office, the one on the 40th floor downtown with glass walls and a panoramic view of the entire city. It was my sanctuary, my fortress. I was on a video call with the Austin team, finalizing the acquisition deal I had been working on. We were sharing a laugh about a minor clause in the contract when my phone buzzed. My assistant's voice piped up in my earpiece. "Ms. Sterling, your father is in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's insistent." My blood ran cold. He had never been here. He didn't even know where I worked. He must have gotten the address from Daniel's letterhead. "Let him up," I said. I ended the call with Austin. "Send him in." I stood and walked to the window, turning my back to the door. I watched the traffic moving like tiny insects far below. I was calm. This was my territory. The door opened. "Claire." I turned. It was my father, Robert. He looked dreadful. He hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot and his expensive suit was wrinkled. He looked old and diminished. My office was designed to make people feel small. It was working. He was clutching a thick manila envelope. "You're hard to find," he said. "I'm not hiding, Dad. I'm just busy." He looked around the office, his eyes taking in the awards on the shelves, the sheer size of the room, the breathtaking view. He was doing the math in his head. This is impressive. You've You've done well for yourself. Is that what you came here to say? He flinched. He walked forward and placed the envelope on my vast, empty mahogany desk. I came here to fix this, he said, his voice low and conspiratorial, the voice he used for business deals. Fix what? This whole mess, this misunderstanding. Families fight, Claire, but they're still family. This wasn't a fight, Dad. This was a felony. He waved a hand dismissively. Semantics. Daniel, that man, your employee, he's demanding an insane amount of money. Restitution. He's threatening to go public, to press charges. He's my COO. He's protecting my company. He's your employee, he hissed. You can call him off. It's your company. You can do whatever you want. That's right, I said. I can, and I'm not calling him off. He sighed, a long, frustrated breath, as if I were a difficult client. Claire, listen to me. Your sister, she's a wreck. She hasn't stopped crying. Your stepmother is beside herself. You've ruined them. I didn't do anything, Dad. I just showed them the truth. They did this. The truth, he scoffed. The truth is you're rich. You've got all this. He gestured vaguely at my life's work. You don't need that money. It's a drop in the bucket for you. But for Jessica, it's her entire life. You're destroying her. She built her life on my work. That's not a life, Dad. It's a fraud. He stared at me, his eyes hardening. The father was gone. This was Robert the negotiator. Okay, he said. Okay, you want to play it that way. He tapped the envelope. This is for you. From me. Peace offering. I didn't move. What is it? It's $300,000, he said. My breath caught in my throat. It's your mother's inheritance, her life insurance. I invested it for you. It's grown. It's yours. I couldn't speak. My mother's inheritance, the money he told me didn't exist, the reason I had to commute, to work at the diner, to eat instant noodles and wear shoes with holes in them. You had this? I whispered. The whole time? You lied to me? I was protecting it, he said, his voice defensive. You were a kid. You would have wasted it. I kept it safe. And now it's yours. $250,000. He pushed the envelope toward me. Take it. Take the money, and you call off your dog. You drop the claims. You find a place for Jessica. In your company. In another city in Austin. You have an Austin office, right? Send her there. No one has to know. It's a win-win. I just stared at him. He wasn't a father. He was a monster. He was trying to bribe me with my own mother's money to cover up his other daughter's crime and to hire her. He didn't just corrupt her. He was the source of the corruption. Where did this come from, Dad? I asked, my voice shaking with a rage so cold it burned. I told you, No, this isn't my mother's money. This is a cashier's check. I could see the edge of it. You got this today. Where did you get $300,000 in cash? He hesitated, just for a second, and in that second, the door to my office burst open. It was Maya. She was 19, supposed to be away at college. She was standing there, breathless, her face pale, her phone clutched in her hand. My assistant was right behind her, wringing her hands. I'm so sorry, Ms. Sterling. She just ran right past. It's okay, Joan, I said. Maya looked at me, then at her father. She saw the envelope on the desk. You're trying to pay her off, Maya whispered. Maya, go home, Robert snapped. This is adult business. I know where you got it, she said, her voice trembling. I've been looking. After yesterday, I had a feeling. She looked at me. He's been doing it for years. Helen and Jessica, they spent so much money. I always wondered. Maya, I am warning you, my father said, advancing on her. It's from the Children's Foundation. Maya said, tears streaming down her face. My father stopped dead. The family charity, Maya whispered. The one you manage, for underprivileged kids. I got into the bank records. The login was on your desk. You've been taking from it. For years. You took $250,000 out this morning. Embezzlement. My father wasn't just a liar and a terrible father. He was a common thief. He was stealing from children. He turned a sick, grayish green. He stumbled back, leaning heavily on my desk for support. It was a loan, he stammered. I was going to pay it back. Maya just shook her head, sobbing. I looked at the envelope, at the check inside. My bribe. It was stolen money, blood money. I picked it up. I pulled out the cashier's check. This is your fix, Dad? I tore it in half. And then again. And again. I let the pieces flutter to the floor at his feet. You didn't just corrupt Jessica, I said, my voice like ice. You corrupted everything. My mother's memory. Your own name. A children's charity. He looked at the pieces of the check on the floor. He looked at Maya. He looked at me. He was broken. Get out, I said. Claire, get out of my office. He stumbled out the door, bumping into the frame. He didn't look back. Maya was still standing there shaking. I walked over to her. I thought I would feel anger. I didn't. I just felt tired. Are you okay? I asked. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I'm so sorry, Claire, she cried. I'm so sorry. I always knew they were awful to you. I was a kid. I was weak. You're not weak, Maya, I said, holding her. You're the strongest person in this entire family. You told the truth. She was the only one. The fallout was swift and total. Maya and I sat in my office for an hour while she told me everything. She had the records, the proof. I made a call. Not to Daniel, not to a lawyer. I called the U.S. Attorney's Office and reported the embezzlement. Then I called the state's Attorney General and did the same. I was a citizen reporting a crime, not a daughter protecting a father. I was done protecting them. The next day, Robert Vance was arrested. It was quiet. 2 men in suits showed up at his house. The charges were embezzlement and wire fraud. The bribe attempt was the last, desperate, stupid act that sealed his fate. He didn't fight it. He had nothing left to fight with. He pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years, but due to his age and reputation, it was reduced to house arrest and full restitution. He had to sell the house in Oak Brook. He had to liquidate everything. Helen filed for legal separation within a week. The money was gone, the status was gone, and she was, above all, a pragmatist. She took what little was left and moved to Florida. I never heard from her again. Jessica's name didn't just vanish from media circles, it was scrubbed. Daniel did his job. The termination was made public, and the word plagiarism is a death sentence in the creative industries. She was blacklisted. She tried to find work in Dallas, then Kansas City, then even Tulsa, but Northlight Digital was a national firm. My name, Claire Sterling, was on industry boards. My network was vast. I never had to say a single word against her. The story was already out there. The story of the star producer who was a total fraud. The last I heard, she was working as a hostess at a chain restaurant in a strip mall, living in a studio apartment paid for by what was left of Helen's money. She called me once, a screaming, hysterical voicemail. I deleted it without listening. And Maya, she was the one. She testified against her father. She handed over all the records to the authorities. It was the hardest, bravest thing I had ever witnessed. Afterward, she came to me. I can't stay here, she said. I know, I replied. She had already transferred colleges to a school in Texas. I need a job, a part-time job. I won't take your money, but I'll work. I'll do coffee runs, I'll file papers, anything. I looked at this 19-year-old girl who had dismantled a corrupt family dynasty simply by telling the truth. "I think I can find a place for you," I said. "She's in our Austin office now. She's a junior graphic designer, and she's brilliant. She has my mother's eye for color. She's the only family I have left. I moved too. I still own Northlight. I'm still the CEO, but I run it from Austin now. I'm sitting in my new office. It's not as big as the one in Chicago, but the view is better. From here, I can see the rolling hills. They're solid. They're real. They aren't going anywhere. They remind me that what's built on rock will last. What's built on lies just washes away in the first rain. I'm free. It's a quiet, strange feeling. For so long, I was the disappointment, the victim, the ghost. I was defined by their neglect, shaped by their betrayal. I'm not anymore. This isn't just a story anymore, it's a conversation. You know, blood doesn't make a family. I learned that the hard way. My father, my sister. We shared DNA, but we were never a family. Loyalty makes a family. My mother was my family. Chloe is my family. Maya, she's my family now. The people who truly see you. The people who fight for you, not with you. If you've ever been the black sheep, if you've ever been the quiet one, if you've ever been called a failure, remember this. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to fight them on their terms. Your work, your truth, your success, that is the only voice you will ever need. Let them talk. Let them laugh. You just keep building, because success speaks so much louder than revenge. My name is Claire Sterling. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because sometimes the quiet one is the one who owns everything.